Good morning, good evening, friends. Welcome to my channel, Ek Kitab Se Ek Moti, which in English means a pearl or gem from one book. Today I'm going to read a few paragraphs from this great and very popular book, Think and Grow Rich, which has been written by Napoleon Hill. And this copy has been published by Amazing Reads. The copyright of this book has lapsed, so you'll find this book online as well. I think there are quite a few very older versions of this book on archive.org as well, archive.org. So you can check those versions as well. And you also get this book from different publishers. You can get get the different editions of this book, the one that you prefer, from Amazon or Flipkart. So before I start reading the paragraphs that I have selected for today's video, let me talk about the title, Think and Grow Rich. So it seems to suggest that before you grow rich, you need to do something about your thinking. So thinking precedes material wealth. But we cannot confine the definition of rich to just material wealth and money and gold and silver. Some may want to grow rich in the area of ethical behavior. Some may want to grow rich in the area of research and science. Some may want to grow rich in the area of their career without necessarily focusing on its material outcome. So depending on what your goal is, you can include that in this in the scope of this word rich. So if you want, you can understand this title in this way as well. That is, think and grow rich in any area of your choice, or think and grow successful in any area of your choice. Now that's my subjective opinion. You might disagree, but I think after having read this book at least twice, I think I've read cover to cover, but I have referred to this book several times, and both in Hindi and English. So now let's just briefly discuss what this book is all about. So this book talks about how to take control of our thoughts so that we can achieve what we want to achieve in our lives. And it has several chapters on the different ways of taking control of our thoughts. It's basically a book on mastery of thoughts. Like, we become the master of our thinking process. That is the essence of this book. And this thinking process can be directed to achieve material wealth. It can be directed to achieve ethical excellence. It can be directed to achieve excellence in your chosen field, so you can acquire mastery over certain skills, and you can become a better and rational thinker using these processes. So it's actually a book on positive thinking. It's a book on thinking in an elevated way, or in a way that that helps you in your life, and it helps you drive away failure and poverty and defeat and fear and anger and hatred. So that's why the scope of this book is very large, actually. And I chose one section from it, or a few paragraphs from it, that have been included in the chapter How to Outwit the Six Ghosts of Fear. But the passages that I'm going to read are, to me, are the gist of the book, or these are the paragraphs that contain a summary of what the author is trying to say. So the entire drift of the book can be figured out from these paragraphs. So now let me read these paragraphs, and then we'll have a brief discussion on why these paragraphs are important and what they imply, and how we can put them into practice. You have absolute control over but one thing, and that is your thoughts. This is the most significant and inspiring of all facts known to man. It reflects man's divine nature. This divine prerogative is the sole means by which you may control your own destiny. If you fail to control your own mind, you may be sure you will control nothing else. Now, he's using these words interchangeably, mind, thoughts. If you must be careless with your possessions, let it be in connection with material things. Your mind is your spiritual estate. Protect and use it with the care to which divine royalty is entitled. You were given a willpower for this purpose. Unfortunately, there is no legal protection against those who, either by design or ignorance, poison the minds of others by negative suggestion. This form of destruction should be punishable by heavy legal penalties because it may and often does destroy one's chances of acquiring material things which are protected by law. Men with negative minds tried to convince, now he's going to give a few examples of people who controlled their thoughts and achieved success in their chosen fields. Men with negative minds tried to convince Thomas A. Edison that he could not build a machine that would record and reproduce the human voice because, they said, no one else had ever produced such a machine. Edison did not believe them. He knew that the mind could produce anything the mind could conceive and believe, and that knowledge was the thing that lifted the great Edison above the common herd. Men with negative minds told F.W. Woolworth he would go broke trying to run a store on 5 and 10 cent sales. Now, these are historical figures, so F.D. Woolworth may have been an industrialist or a businessman, entrepreneur of those times. Men with negative minds told F.W. Woolworth he would go broke trying to run a store on 5 and 10 cent sales. He did not believe them. He knew that he could do anything within reason if he backed his plans with faith. Exercising his right to keep other men's negative suggestions out of his mind, he piled up a fortune of more than $100 million. Men with negative minds told George Washington he could not hope to win against the vastly superior forces of the British, but he exercised his divine right to believe. Therefore, this book was published under the protection of the Stars and Stripes, while the name of Lord Cornwallis has been all but forgotten. I think he's talking about that war of American independence. Doubting Thomases scoffed scornfully when Henry Ford tried out his first crudely built automobile on the streets of Detroit. Some said the thing never would become practical. Others said no one would pay money for such a contraption. Ford said, "I'll belt the earth with dependable motor cars," and he did. His decision to trust his own judgment has always piled up a fortune far greater than the next 5 generations of his descendants can squander. For the benefit of those seeking vast riches, let it be remembered that practically the sole difference between Henry Ford and a majority of more than 100,000 men who work for him is this: Ford has a mind and controls it. The others have minds which they do not try to control, and these are in like capital letters. So the message is here. This is the message, the essential message of this book. Henry Ford has been repeatedly mentioned because he's an astounding example of what a man with a mind of his own and a will to control it can accomplish. His record knocks the foundation from under that time-worn alibi. Alibi is an excuse usually, or some kind of reasons we give for not doing something well. I never had a chance. Let me read that sentence again. His record knocks the foundation from under that time-worn alibi. I never had a chance. Ford never had a chance either, but he created an opportunity and backed it with persistence until it made him richer than Croesus or Croesus. I don't know. It's maybe a Greek character who appears in maybe Iliad and Odyssey, or it's a Roman character that appears in the works of Virgil or the other poets of Rome, I'm not sure. Mind control is a result of self-discipline and habit. You either control your mind or it controls you. There is no halfway compromise. The most practical of all methods for controlling a mind is the habit of keeping it busy with a definite purpose, backed by a definite plan. Study the record of any man who achieves noteworthy success, and you will observe that he has control over his own mind. Moreover, that he exercises that control and directs it toward the attainment of definite objectives. Without this control, success is not possible. So that's what I want to read from this book. Now let's just think about what the great Napoleon Hill has said in these passages. So the first thing is, man has absolute control only on one thing. We cannot control nature. We cannot control nature totally. We have some control over it using science and technology, but total control and absolute control is not within the reach of humanity at the moment. So the only thing we can control totally and absolutely is our thinking process, our minds, our brains. So that's why this is the most important thing in our life, how we use our brains to ensure that we achieve success in life. And as I said in the beginning of the video, success need not be confined to riches, material riches alone. Success in all fields, maybe in the practice of your religion, in ethical behavior, in acquiring skills that will help you become a better employee, a better entrepreneur, and any field of endeavor, actually. That's the importance of this process, that is taking control of your thought process and the fact that you have absolute control over this one thing. He also says that man's nature is divine precisely because he or she can control and direct his or her thoughts. Now, when in these ancient books the word man is used, it's a noun that includes both men and women. So that was the way language was used then. So nowadays we'd say a person's nature is divine because he or she can control and direct his or her thoughts. So the reason a man can control his thoughts is because God has given him this ability, and his divine nature is shown in this power that we possess. So let me just repeat this. Man's nature is divine because he can control and direct his thoughts. So if you see all books of religions talk about this power that man possesses, that we can decide what kinds of thoughts we are going to think. That's what you find in the Bible, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Quran, in all the scriptures of the world, that man is the master of his destiny on this earth and and our destiny hereafter. And religions are a mechanism of controlling our thoughts, because most of the religions say don't hate, don't get angry, don't have greed, don't consider anyone your enemy, don't be running after wealth alone. I mean, acquiring wealth is fine, but that alone should not possess our minds, and consider defeat and victory the same. And if anyone hurls words of abuse at you, just bear these things patiently. So how do we do that? We can do that only by changing a thought pattern. For example, when we consider someone our enemy, let's say Mr. A is your enemy and Mr. B is your friend. Now the Bhagavad Gita says, and even the Bible and even the Quran, these talk about bearing patiently with people who may insult you, or who may be angry with you, or who may mistreat you. So I was talking about Mr. A and Mr. B. Let's say Mr. A is your friend and Mr. B is your enemy. So the normal process is to hate Mr. B and love and maybe have good relations with Mr. A, and that's how the world works. That's how the normal thinking process works. That is, we hate our enemy and we love our friends. But the books of religion say that we need to consider them the same. We need to have the same kind of attitude towards both of them. So how do we do that? We need to work on our thoughts, and there is some shift that's needed in the normal process of our thinking, because that's why we have absolute control over thinking. So anyone who says that he cannot stop hating others is fooling himself or herself, because we are kind of dodging our responsibility of controlling our thoughts. So what we need to do is this, that is, find something common that's in Mr. A and Mr. B. So one thought shift that can help us overcome hatred for others is this. That is, both Mr. B and Mr. A are the creations of God. They have been created by God. So we should not differentiate or discriminate between them. That is one way of looking at it. The other way, philosophical, is both are made of the same material stuff that the world consists of. So both are body, mind, and spirit. So they may be in different locations and they may occupy different parts of space, but they're still made of the same stuff, and everything is God's property. So even those people who are our enemies are God's property. They have been made by God. God has used the stuff of this universe to construct them. So we shouldn't hate anything that comes out of God's hands. That is the product of God's creativity. So these are some of the ways in which we can think we can shift our thinking process. Now there might be many. I'm just these are the two ways that I recalled just now. And the other one could be that religion asks us to take control of the way we think and not the way others think about us. So it doesn't matter how others treat us. I cannot blame them and say, you guys were responsible for the way I think, and you guys are responsible for the hatred I have for you. No. Religion says, take control of yourself, be responsible for your thinking. That's the highest stage of religious practice, where we say, I'm responsible for my thoughts. Doesn't matter how the world treats me, or doesn't matter how others think about me, or what words they use to describe me. That is their way and their prerogative to think and behave the way they want. But the way I'm going to think will be right, or should be right, because God expects us to do that. So thinking right, behaving right, and speaking right is something under my control. It doesn't need any external help, actually. And the other thing that we can do is we can set some goals using our brains, and then keep the mind occupied, so that is another way of taking control of our thoughts. And so we become responsible for setting our goals and achieving them. But this is how Napoleon Hill concludes his passage, saying that the most practical of all methods for controlling the mind is the habit of keeping it busy with a definite purpose, backed by a definite plan. So in case you are unable to control your thoughts using any other method, the most practical of all methods is to have a definite purpose, backed by a plan, and then keep busy, reaching your goals or moving towards your goals. And one more thing that Napoleon Hill says is, mind control is the result of self-discipline and habit. So it's a matter of self-discipline. It's not that someone is going to impose this on others. It is totally our prerogative and totally something that is in our hands. And the other thing is habit. So a single day is not enough to change our thought processes, although there are some people who have had this sudden shift of thinking where the entire the way they look at the entire world changes just suddenly. But for most of us, it's a process, so we can train our minds to think the right way. So let me now just recapitulate. So the first thing that Napoleon Hill talked about is this fact that we have absolute control over just one thing in this universe, and that is our thoughts. And this shows our divine nature, because God has put this power in us so that we could live the way God expects us to live. And religions are about thought control, and we can use our thoughts to overcome any negative way of thinking. So hatred, anger, sorrow, greed, even sorrow. I think I forgot to mention that sorrow can be controlled, because when we see someone close to our family die, for example, the mind starts, we kind of hand over the control of our minds to that situation, and then most of us would find that situation unbearable. But the Bhagavad Gita says that the wise man does not grieve for the dead or for those who are alive, because that's the highest stage of spiritual realization, where you are just thinking about the soul or the spirit of the person, and you start believing that the spirit exists forever, but the body has been designed to perish and to die. So because this is the law of nature, this has to be accepted kind of in a patient way, and with calmness, and not getting agitated about it. And then we can set goals for ourselves, and then we have plans to achieve those goals, and keep busy trying to achieve those goals. And self-discipline is needed to control our minds, and we also need to do that habitually, so that it becomes our permanent method of thinking. So I recommend this book. Just buy this book, read it, and read it with an independent mind. So we need not accept everything Napoleon Hill says, but most of what he says makes a lot of sense, and we can benefit from this and change our lives for the better. Thanks for watching this video.